This bitter land, watered with my soul, the fruit it bears leaves me so cold. This bitter land does nothing for love. This bitter land rains pain above.
Running on the concrete, cross the train tracks. The devil is behind me, and the ghetto's where you find me. It's where I stays at. Cop shot us up, he get a medal to retire, but it never will define me. Write a letter to the president, whoever in control of the society. Tell him stop riding me, stop driving us into a suicidal ideology. Trying to feed my seeds, getting high in weed, study my degrees. Stay fly, getting paper, with some dead white people faces in a circle of spaces around the green. I'm on lean, taking perks, it's a bit of earth. It's a nigga cursed, am I blessed? See what I mean? It's a test, life is a test. Life is like a hood, hard, trying not to fall between the cracks. And the cracks are so dark, and the dark seems more appealing than the light in the land where you gotta fight, catch a body in the night. We need a plan to survive the land, survive the storm when it comes through. Either you're busy living or busy dying. Look what it's come to. Look what it's come to. So what you gonna do?
This bitter land is far too real. This bitter land, it does not heal. 'Cause in the land, skies are gray, but we fight the storms that come our way. A boy who strives to be a man must push to live with all he can. Oh, this bitter land, bitter land. Oh, this bitter land.
For being here tonight, and we look forward to hearing from you, and congratulations, like, amazing.
Thank you so much, and I'm honored to be here. I think it's important for the Black community and society on a whole to have groups like Kujenga, especially in terms of wellness and mental health, because it's not something that we've grown up speaking about in the Black community. So I'm 100% appreciative of being here and having this opportunity. Yeah, so I'm getting into it now. I'm starting. All right. So hi, everyone. As you heard, my name is Shahaddah Jack. I'm a 17-year-old spoken word poet, human rights activist, and art workshop facilitator. Today, I have 3 poems prepared to present to you all. Each of these pieces are from very different parts of my life, different ages, different mental health stages that I was at. And I really wanted to take you all through that journey of what Black mental health really looks like, and the intersectionality of it, and how it's something that's always changing, because the same person that you are today isn't who you're going to be tomorrow, as we're always adopting new experiences and ideologies, and our wellness practices and mental health practices are always changing with that. So this is why I chose these specific 3 pieces for today. So the first piece I have for you all today is titled Venom in My Melanin. This piece I wrote when I was 13 years old, and I'll give a little bit more context after this performance, but I hope you all enjoy. Usually for spoken word, you snap your fingers, you go, So when you're at home, you know, just snap, feel it, feel free to go in the comments as I go. Racism is plagiarism of Satanism, playing on the deepest parts of our oppression, a virus plaguing our minds, erasing our memories and burning the roots of our ancestry. Or is it our history? Generational brainwashing designed to confine societal norms, discrimination, becoming a sort of assimilation to a culture that isn't even ours. The truth is, colorism has become the venom in my melanin. My dark chocolate skin does not make me less than when we have the same bloodline running through what lies within. How can you still share blood because of self-hatred? The truth is, my brothers and sisters are experiencing self-inflicted pain using AI to hide where the truth lies, with orchestrated demonstrations of racialism. Manipulation inherently became the key to progress, artificial senses of revelations used to cover up lies. Now, my question is, how did I become racist for educating my community that it is okay to love yourself, that it is okay to accept yourself, that we do not need to pit ourselves against one another, that each child born into this community isn't one that's thrown to the wolves, but is nurtured by wounded protectors. My wounded mother taught me to embrace my color, a strong woman trying to raise a strong girl in a world that uses strong words. How strong can I be when my color is all that I seem to think about? A dark-skinned girl with light-skinned friends known as midnight to them. When the lights go out, laughter rings through my ears. Where'd Shahaddah go? She disappeared. I can't seem to escape a reality where on the streets my skin is associated with negativity. Even my own name defeats me. Lately, a religious token bringing fear to broken ears. Each stereotype created by society is like a painful injection of venom embedding itself into my melanin. The truth is, the venom in my melanin is a story unfinished, not written by me, but yet it's still consumed by my senses. The venom in my melanin is a story unfinished, not written by me, but yet it's still consumed by my senses. The venom in my melanin is a story unfinished. The real truth is, the venom you see in my melanin is made up of riches, a tower of endless possibilities built on the foundation of the purest Black gold, a vessel destined to be a sanctuary for our Black kings and queens, using the knowledge of buried Nefertitis to build the strongest of defenses against hidden civilizations. Silent but deadly. Non-violent but aggressive in our aspirations. Your shade is not determining the capabilities to your greatness, creating movies favoring the vastness of Black societies, Black boys leading revolutionary countries, Black girls running their very own companies, our culture being on the cover of mainstream magazines. Now, the real truth is there is power in my sacred melanin, a remedy to the venom you see in me. Thank you. Once again, that was Venom in My Melanin. I'm going to take a sip of water, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Are you going to allow us to ask you questions at the end? Can we do that?
At the end, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Anytime is
I
good.
know, you need to like get your juices up. And the audience is like snapping you out. We're hearing snaps, beautiful, beaming. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so once again, that was Venom in My Melanin, and thank you so much for your kind words. So this piece was written when I started attending a predominantly white institution for my education. And I've grown up as somebody, like I said in my piece, my wounded mother who taught me to embrace my color. I grew up as someone who wasn't ashamed of my Blackness. But I also grew up in Scarborough, where you're not supposed to be. And I think going to a school in a new neighborhood with new faces, I started to kind of question my beauty, the beauty of my Blackness. And that was really hard and really a struggle for me. And I think that a lot of these experiences in terms of racism, in terms of prejudice, in terms of questioning our Blackness is something that we've adopted together as a community, but oftentimes we don't reflect on how our individual experiences truly impact us. And we invalidate those feelings and emotions that we may have surrounding it if we hear someone else's story on the news or in person say, oh, I haven't experienced it like that. So you know what, who am I to feel this way? But it doesn't matter in terms of the extent of the act or the racism, it still has an impact on you and influences what you internalize and how you see yourself. So this piece is really about how internalized racism manifests itself and kind of the importance of understanding where these internalized ideologies come from so we can understand the practice and the wellness practices that we need for our individualized experiences, because the trends that we're seeing and the things that we may be hearing might not be tailored to who we are in that moment. So it's important to kind of, you know, identify that. So that's Venom in My Melanin. The next piece I have for you all today is titled Chained to the Streets. Black boy, eyes filled with sorrow. You were fooled to believe that there is no purpose in the possibility of tomorrow, that your bulletproof attitude is the reason why bullets will come for you and not the cancer in history known as white man's fear. The same men that are meant to serve and protect, but are also told to put you to death at any sign of a threat, told to be made an example of, told to be put down like a rabid dog meant to lie with its fleas. You are known to society as a disease, but yet they will use your stories to create culturally appropriated magazines, and they will use your beauty, the same one they used to keep you in the streets, to create best-selling novels, profiting off of the product of their racism. You see, they will always want to use your beauty, but not your pain, your face, but not your name, your culture without your history. They will use you until there is nothing left, until, like all wild animals, Black boys have gone extinct. A genocide years in the making. They've done this by making young Black girls fear bringing Black men into this world. As a young Black girl, I know. As a young Black girl, I'm ashamed that I've let society's stereotypes of my very own people make me scared to one day be the mother of a Black boy, let alone a Black man. But I don't want to have to think of the all too common to you speech about police brutality that most 5-year-olds know before they know how to read. No. I want my child to live the mentality of a free man and not some slave under his master's command. But how can you be expected to live your free when you still feel like a slave, but this time chained to the streets? So that was once again Chained to the Streets. This piece is really about understanding that we are not our struggles. That even though I always say your pain is your power, your pain is not your only strength. And we don't need mainstream media to validate the beauty of our community and the experiences of our community, and we can create those spaces on our own. It's about prioritizing self-worth and self-respect and self-love over anything. And that's what contributes to how you view your mental health and your wellness. That's what that piece at that time was truly about. I wrote that piece at 15, and it was before George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And it just shows how relevant these conversations were and how relevant these conversations still are today. So yeah, that's really Chained to the Streets. And do I have time for one more? Yeah, okay, sounds good. So this one is a very new piece titled My Prayer for You. I wrote it a week ago. I'm working on a new book. So this is kind of, I'm sharing it, but also it will be in that piece coming out as well. So this is My Prayer for You. I'm not someone who prays often, but sitting here right now, I feel my shoulders getting heavy. I feel my chest tightening with each labored breath I take while treading through these muddy waters called life. I feel my head getting clouded by the worries I have for the future that's in store for me. I feel the need to pray for the people that I hold close to me, that even though I feel our wavering connection slipping through my fingers, I know that the eyes of the universe will be looking out for them. I know that the hands of the universe will be guiding them, protecting them. This is my prayer for my forgotten sisters. This is my prayer for those friends that last for lifetimes, despite the cracks and neglected foundations. This is my prayer for the tethered souls who are my lifeline. This is my prayer for the fallen goddesses who got lost in the promise of perfection. This is my prayer for the brothers who lost their mothers. This is my prayer for the little Black girls who never got to know their fathers. I pray that you don't get lost when searching for your purpose. I pray that you don't get faded in the shadow of someone else's image. I pray that you don't drown in the loneliness of resilience. I pray that you don't get swallowed by the endless expectations of greatness. I pray that you don't let your dreams and aspirations deflate under the pressures of a broken society. I pray that you unconditionally enshrine the temple that is your Black body. I pray that you understand that you are eternally loved. I pray that you know you are enough. This is my prayer for you. So in this final piece, my prayer for you, I think really in terms of wellness and Black mental health, it's about knowing when not to only adopt the pain of others, because as a Black community, and especially as Black women, we feel the need to be caregivers. We feel the need and importance to hold each other up, but when do we really take the time to hold ourselves up? So it's really about, every day we ask each other, how are you doing? How's it going? But we need to check in with ourselves and ask that question. And we can't do the same practices and prayers every day, and we expect the same result. It's not a mathematical equation. That's not what spirituality and faith is and wellness is. It's about acknowledging where you are in the moment and the certain things you need to do to resolve that. And it's not going to be the same every time. And I think that's really important to acknowledge, but it's important to acknowledge that you are your greatest caregiver and not anyone else, and to be able to check in with yourself and your body and your soul. So those were my 3 pieces of chronological time, and seeing how the Black mind and Black body and Black ideology can change or even sometimes stay the same, and see the growth that still needs to be done. So thank you for allowing me to share these pieces today.
So delighted to bring you on stage in our Zoom stage, to be with us tonight.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here, and it's about time. We've been trying to work this out for some time. Gosh, storytelling is so important in that before we were writing things down, we as a community, as a collective, were gathering together and sharing. We passed down our beliefs, our history, our dreams, our motivations, and the magic. And we do that by gathering and chatting. And here we are having another opportunity to talk about us and loving ourselves in an intimate space. And I'm glad to be here to share it with you. There was a time in life where we weren't so close. There was a time when we had to do things by ourselves. So the first story that I want to share with you is called The Selfish Villagers Who Learned a Bitter Lesson. Long ago in Africa, there was a mighty king, and he was a very strict ruler. He told people where to go, what to do, and how to do it. He told all of his people that they must do everything by themselves. Imagine, build a house, plant a garden, cook a meal, all by themselves. Now, this was awkward, and it made the people very sad. Not only that, it made the gods of the land looking down on the kingdom very sad as well. So much so that they sent their oracle to come and speak to the king. Well, the oracle was a religious man who had his ear to the gods and could receive their messages and deliver them when necessary. When that king met with the oracle, he told him to leave because he could govern his own kingdom on his own. Shortly after the oracle left, that king fell ill. There was no soup, no prayers, nothing that could make him feel better. He died not too long after, but this gave the people a chance to pick their own king. And they decided to pick Achai, who was a young man, brave, strong, and he had new ideas. He wanted the people to work together because together great things can happen. So he decided that they were going to have a large feast where everyone in the village would come. It would be called the Kindness Fest, the Kindness Feast. And he instructed that every head of the household would bring wine to the event. Everyone was excited. They were chatting about it, except for one person who thought to himself, if everybody is bringing wine, if I bring water, who would know? And off he went with his thoughts. The day of the feast arrived and everyone was excited. All of the heads of household brought their wine. And of course, those were the days when we didn't have glasses, so you couldn't see through the containers. And all of them were poured into a big drum. Wow. King Achai was so happy to see all of his people together in one place. This was a new beginning. He called forth his servants to come and pour the wine. Every man, woman, and child had a cup. King Achai lifted his high and blessed his people and took a sip of the wine and said nothing. Well, everyone was excited too, and they too took a sip of the wine. They looked at each other and everyone sat down. At that moment, King Achai spit out all of the wine, looked angrily at his people and said, "You, what would it have hurt you to bring wine for your brothers and sisters, your neighbors to enjoy? All of you bring water?" Everyone looked at each other. King Achai was so angry. He declared that the feast was over and everyone had to leave. Well, it was a small village, but all of the villagers, it took them a very long time to get home because they had to think about what happened. And they realized that maybe their behavior, they wouldn't say fully selfish, but maybe just a little bit selfish. And they thought about it all night long. They thought about it. But when the sun rose the next day, they all had a new vision. Everyone decided, what would it hurt if they looked out for their neighbor, showed care for their brothers and sisters? If they did things together, how powerful could they be? I can tell you this for sure. From that day to this day, they were no longer known as the selfish villagers, because you see, each and every one of them learned a bitter lesson. Gosh, thank you very much. I'm glad I was able to share that with you. We talk about the different stories that I love to tell folk tales. And the reason why I love to tell folk tales is because they're by the folk. They're the stories that have been passed down orally from generation to generation, and we don't know who the original author is. But what we do know is that every storyteller adds a piece of themselves to make each story memorable. And there's always a message that needs to be delivered. I'm from Jamaica, and my favorite stories are Anansi stories. And wherever you go, you hear Anansi this and Anansi that. Well, how did Anansi get all of these stories anyway? I got a good one to help with that. This story is called All Stories Belong to Anansi. Well, Anansi and his little self, with his face of a man and body of a spider, would get himself in and out of trouble a lot. But on this particular day, while sitting in his web, he looked down on the earth and watched the people work. They were in and out of places, digging holes, doing all kinds of things, preparing meals. At the end of the day, they would sit together and sit. That was it. And Nancy thought to himself, there must be something better for these people. Now, we all know Anansi is a fairly selfish character, but there are times when he does things that benefit everyone around him. This is one of those tales. You see, Anansi decided within himself that the people needed stories. They needed to talk amongst each other and show love in a different way. But all the stories belonged to Nyame, the sky god. Well, up Anansi went to seek an audience with Nyame. When he got there, he told Nyame exactly what he wanted. I want your stories. Nyame, sky god, laughed at little Anansi. Anansi, bigger than you have come and failed. I don't just give the stories away. Anansi said, that's okay. I can do whatever you need done, but the people need the stories. Nyame thought for a minute. But everyone who came had to do the same task, so Anansi will have to do it too. He told Anansi that there were 3 tasks that he needed to do. First, he needed to capture Onini, the python. Second, he needed to capture the leopard whose teeth were as sharp as spears, Osebo. And finally, he would have to bring him the hornets, Murabu. Bring those 3 things and you can have my stories. Well, little Anansi tried to figure out how he would do that, but no worries, the people needed the stories. So Anansi came back down to the earth and hatched his plan. First, it was Onini. He went into the forest and started talking to himself, arguing with himself about length. When Onini came sliding by, he said, Anansi, what is your problem? Anansi explained the fight he was having to determine whether Onini was long or short, but what would be the best way to measure? Onini came up with the best idea. Let's measure you against a stick of bamboo. Well, Onini laid down and there was the stick, but Anansi, the clever one that he is, said, you know, I can't really tell because every time I think you are, you move your head or you move your tail. It's best I tie you to the bamboo stick and we'll know for sure. Well, there Anansi was, spinning his web all over Onini. When Onini couldn't move a muscle, Anansi began to laugh and whispered, you're caught. Picked up the bamboo stick and took it up to Nyame, who smiled one side of his mouth. Then Anansi went back down to the earth. Next, it was Osebo. How was he going to catch the leopard whose teeth were as sharp as spears? Anansi started to dig a hole. He knew exactly where Osebo would hunt for his prey and dug a deep, wide hole. When Anansi was satisfied that it was deep enough, he covered it with leaves and sticks. Then he waited. And of course, Osebo came looking for his food, walking the same path he did every night, except this night, he took 1, 2, 3 whoops. He fell into the hole and couldn't get himself out no matter what he did. In the morning, Anansi came back and said, how did you get there? Get me out, roared the leopard. Anansi said, if I let you out, will you eat me? He says, no. Anansi thought to himself, he had a plan. He found a tree not too far away. It was a young tree, you know, the bendable ones. So Anansi tied one end of his web around the tree and the other he lowered down into the hole and told Osebo to wrap it around himself. When he was satisfied, Anansi cut the rope and that tree sprung up to its full height and out came Osebo, bouncing around and spinning in circles. He was so dizzy, he couldn't tell day or night. And Anansi spun a web completely wrapping his body. When Osebo couldn't move, Anansi brought him up to Nyame. And Nyame smiled, both sides of his mouth. But there was one more task. Back down, Anansi came to the earth with a plan. He went and found himself a calabash. He opened it up, he cleaned it out, and he filled it with water. He walked into the forest, deep into the forest, until he found the hornet's nest, the biggest hornet you ever did see. His plan was now in motion. Anansi covered himself with water. And then he took the rest of the water and emptied it on the nest. Those hornets came out angry. Zing, zing, zing. And there was Anansi standing with a leaf over his head. Oh, the rains have come early. Murabo looked at Anansi. What? He said. Anansi said, the rains have come early. Maybe if you stay in my calabash, I could keep you dry until the rain passes. Well, without any choice and their hatred for water, the hornets flew inside the calabash. Zing, zing, zing. When the last one came in, Anansi covered the lid and spun his web. He brought the calabash up to Nyame and held it out. Nyame laughed. He said, Anansi, I asked you for hornets and you bring me a calabash? Anansi said, shake. When he shook, you could hear the angry hornets buzzing, zing, 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 zing inside. Well, Nyame laughed. He laughed wholeheartedly. Anansi, bigger than you have come and failed, and here you are. They're yours. He took the box from under his throne and presented it to Anansi. The stories are yours, Anansi, but everyone who tells these stories need to know that they belong to you. Yes, yes, Anansi said. He took the box, came down to earth, opened that box, and gave stories to all of the people. You get stories, you get stories, you get stories. And they all began to talk. They sat around fires. They talked about people. They talked about places. They talked about wars won, papers and things invented. They spoke and spoke and spoke, and knowledge spread around the world. So if you ever want to know why all stories belong to Anansi, that little spider did a lot of work, and every story now belongs to him. Thank you.